Van Lathan just checked Emmanuel Acho on pandering to white people.
Let me tell you why what you just said offends me. In the conversation with the police that I watched you have, the police are human too. Emmanuel, who gives a fuck?
And no matter what you think of Van Lathan, I'm glad a black American is finally having these conversations with people like Emmanuel, because it seems like he and people like him have always talked about important and racial topics in a way that was digestible to white people to make them feel better about things like racism and discrimination.
All the while, I have the privilege and luxury of not having generational trauma because my parents were born in Nigeria. So then my method is removing some of the sting because I don't have that sting, and trying to deliver a message in a manner that people can receive it. Primarily, white people.
But I'm Jude, welcome to the channel. Please like and share the video. Don't forget to sub. Now, let's get into it. I actually clicked this video from Twitter, but it took me to Taj360's channel, so shout out to him.
I know why they say that, because I've been in them rooms when they saying that. When I kick it with black people and they're like, all white people are racist. I know why you're saying that. All the while, I have the privilege and luxury of not having generational trauma because my parents were born in Nigeria. So then my method is removing some of the sting.
This is the same issue that David Oyelowo ran to when he was talking about black Americans having trauma and being brought up in pain and hatred.
I'm a product of a Yoruba man and an Igbo woman coming together, and they didn't bring me up with all of that trauma and dysfunction and hatred. They brought me up in love. And this narrative around the silos that we inhabit as black people, these black British actors coming to take our roles, these, how African Americans feel like that.
And him not having that because he was raised in Nigeria, so it supposedly made him better off and more open-minded. When in fact, all of Africa was colonized except for two countries, I think, Ethiopia and Liberia. Therefore, any other country other than those two have dealt with colonization, oppression, racism, discrimination, and generational trauma.
Between 1884 and 1885, the Berlin Conference was called by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. The aim was to discuss how European countries would claim colonial land in Africa. The Berlin Conference allowed King Leopold II of Belgium to become the sole ruler of a vast area that is today the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In 1908, it was revealed that under King Leopold's instructions, native people of the Congo were forced to farm wild rubber. Those unable to carry out these instructions had their hand or foot severed. Great Britain dominated the African continent with the control of Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and the Gold Coast. The French occupied vast expanses of West Africa. The Germans controlled modern-day Tanzania, as well as Namibia. The Italians controlled Somalia and Libya, whilst the Portuguese exerted full control over Angola and Mozambique. By 1914, 90% of Africa had been divided between 7 European countries.
However, it's this weird belief that they're less traumatized than us because they come to a different country and don't have to deal with the same type of in-your-face racism and discrimination that we have to deal with as black Americans. Therefore, it gives immigrants some type of leverage over us. That's just the wrong way to look at things, especially when black people all across the globe have dealt with colonization, oppression, and racism. And then to think that because you immigrate to a different country, you have a better perspective of race relations in American history and black American history than the black people in that land do is crazy. I would never go to Nigeria or any other African country and think I understand what the black people there are going through better than they do. Or to think I have a better perspective on how white people have treated them. That would not be my place. I would not insert myself in those type of conversations without at least having a native from that land there with me to have those conversations.
Because my parents were born in Nigeria. So then my method is removing some of the sting because I don't have that sting, and trying to deliver a message in a manner that people can receive it. Primarily, white people.
That's called tap dancing. That's literally called tap dancing, being an Uncle Ruckus, to try to downplay everything that black Americans have gone through, to make white people feel better about it is insane to me, especially coming from somebody that's not a black American. I think how a lot of black Americans feel is if you're gonna be an ally, be an ally. Don't try to use your position as a person of color to sanitize American and black American history, to make white people feel better, to get closer to whiteness, to be accepted more. If you're gonna use your perspective as an immigrant or a child of an immigrant, then try to relate to the black American struggle, what we've been going through, and use your platform as a voice for justice for black Americans, not to shit on us for the improvement of white people.
This dude actually thinks that him being from Nigeria means he's more digestible to white folks. They think that they are in closer proximity or that they are valued more because they don't have quote unquote trauma. But let's also keep it real though. Nigeria was colonized as well. And so
That was literally my point. Every country in Africa, except for two, have been colonized. Just because they swap countries and they trade oppressors doesn't mean they're not carrying generational trauma. That's a weird way to look at things. Instead of trying to be 100% an ally to the black people in the land that you're coming to.
they got trauma as well. So what he's saying actually doesn't hold any weight at all. They got colonized, which is the same thing as being enslaved. They did the same exact things we did over here. And they were traumatized as well, which is why to this day, they have Stockholm syndrome and why they look at them folks as superior anyway.
Okay, let me tell you why what you just said offends me.
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, there are a couple of things. I grew up South Baton Rouge, Louisiana. All my classmates were white. I was in the gifted program. All of my classmates were white from the beginning. McKinley High School, gifted program.
I know a lot of people are critical of Van Lathan. Maybe they see him as watered down sometimes or not addressing things as directly as he could sometimes. But I am still appreciative that there's a black American in the room having these conversations with people that have platforms on these platforms. And no, he does not get it right all the time. I do not get it right all the time. Nobody does.
McKinley High School, gifted program, 80% black school, gifted program, all white, Vans in the class with them, Vans in the class, Vans playing basketball and sports and everything else with the black kids. Mama from South Baton Rouge, all of that. I understand the being pulled between two worlds. I understand the having the insight into two worlds. You saying that you don't have generational trauma and you didn't mean it this way, but the reason, and it's, I have to name it, you saying that you don't have any generational trauma.
To say you don't have generational trauma and that gives you a better perspective or a better understanding, you understand language better, you can do accents better.
If I'm being a Southerner, well, you know what? You know what happens to Southerners? If you take the Nigerian accent like this and you slow it down, you put a lot of slavery in there.
Facts.
And then you start to put a little bit of subservience in it. This is what starts to happen to the Nigerian accent.
Man.
It's super condescending, and I don't know how black immigrants don't see it that way.
In some way meaning, or that in some way meaning that your delivery method to white people is going to be either more effective or more sanitized,
More
is,
palpable.
to me, dangerous.
They end up being pawns against us, buffers against us, and they actually harm what we're trying to do.
And let me tell you why. Everybody that you just named and what you're talking about does what they do in different ways. I don't think that any of the things that they do are necessarily harmful. But what I could say is a black man, a prominent one, acting as an emotional butler for white people and serving them the most milquetoast, unspicy, unseasoned,
Unoffensive, palpable, digestible
brand of racial discourse and accountability possible could definitely be harmful, because what it does, I saw episodes where you were on there with Matthew McConaughey, and Matthew McConaughey out and out said, when will Black Lives Matter end?
That's an insane thing for a white man to ask. When will Black Lives Matter stop mattering? The simple fact is we should have never even had to create a movement called Black Lives Matter. Black lives should have always mattered to America and to the world as a whole. The fact that we had to create a movement to call it out, and they tried to co-opt it so many times, white lives matter, blue lives matter, just proves the point of how black Americans are looked at and devalued in this country and around the world.
He goes, well, when is it going to be time for it to be over? But that's an outrageous question to ask at the time that he's sitting down with you. And it's an outrageous question to posit when we're going to be able to say all lives matter after everyone just watched George Floyd get his head blown off.
Suffocate me, yeah.
I watched you also sit down with the police.
Did you say my response?
In the conversation with the police that I watched you have, there was nothing tangible that addressed the systemic issues of policing that lead to unfair and deadly outcomes all over the country. It was about whether or not the police liked black people, whether or not they were nice to black people.
That's crazy. So the conversation wasn't about aggressive over-policing in underfunded neighborhoods, how police constantly devalue and dehumanize black people and always look at black people as aggressors.
And even, as I wrote it down, the police are human too. Emmanuel, who gives a fuck? Like, we're fighting for our lives. And to me, having a conversation like that at that particular time, it's not that it's a different method. Everybody has a different method. It's that it's the wrong method.
That is a crazy thing to say. Police are human too when we have outright seen them assassinate black people on camera in front of witnesses and get off. I think the Sonia Massey incident is one of the very few where we actually saw justice happen. And even that, a black woman still lost her life in her house doing absolutely nothing. So the problem isn't the police being humans. The problem is the police not seeing black people as humans. And that not being addressed or the focal point of a conversation is baffling to me. But that happens when you're not born and raised in the culture that has had to deal with this through generations.
I know that you have the best of intentions. You're a good guy. My question is, what the fuck is the point of all of this? Is it to make them feel better?
Yes.
About all of these things that are going on? Like, for what? Like, why? Like, why are you talking to someone and there's zero call to action? It's just, now I'm gonna go be a better person. It just don't work that way.
Yeah, our point in these conversations, calling it out, pointing it out, is never to make racists feel better. It's to bring their actions to light, to put what they say and do under a magnifying glass, to make other black people aware, to not let any racism, discrimination, oppression be swept under the rug. Our job as black people is not to make people that don't like us feel better. It's to force accountability and to get justice when injustices happen.
This is why we don't have guys like this representing us, because they like to dance around the truth and they like to do the bidding for them folks, which is sabotaging us. So this is exactly why we don't need them in any of our political spaces, in our economic circles.
Just like Stephen A. Smith, if you don't have the understanding or the balls to have the conversations that need to be had, to call out people in situations that need to be called out, then stick to sports. Stay away from very important, very tough conversations like race and politics. Talk about basketball and football players where your takes and the things you say are less damaging to the black community as a whole. At the end of the day, these conversations need to happen, especially for anybody that's speaking on anything related to black America. Having a different perspective is one thing, but acting like your perspective is better than ours because white people will accept it more is tone deaf and way off code. But shout out to my channel and Patreon members. Thank you so much for supporting it. Thanks for watching. Y'all let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Also, make sure you check out the next video and don't forget to follow me on Instagram for behind the scenes and life stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.